to do sky replacement in After Effects. If you twirl down the assets, we will take sky replacement 1 and we will drag that into the composition button, and that will make a composition that's both the size and the length of that shot. We will also take cloud 3 and drag it below that. So let's watch the shot, and you will see that there's a pan in it, and so we're going to need to track our sky to go with that pan. And so we'll start by going back to the beginning of our shot, making sure that sky replacement is chosen, and we will open up our tracking window. And with that sky replacement still highlighted, we will click on track motion, and that will open up the footage panel. And basically we can do some tracking stuff in here that we can't do in the composition panel. We're going to finish in the composition panel, but here in the footage panel we'll do the tracking. We want to create a null layer. I'm going to hit return, and we're going to rename it tracking layer, tracking data. And let's go back to our shot, track motion, and basically we want to pick a spot that's as far away as possible. I'm going to, either by using Command plus or by taking the trackpad and going up and down, we can change the size of this. And so what we want to do is we want to track the farthest object possible that is still good for tracking, and because it needs to be in the shot the whole time. And so we're going to pick the corner of this building. And then we are going to just do the position. We are going to send that to our tracking data layer, and we're going to want our luminance to be our option. And then we will analyze that data. Okay, once we're done, we'll want to just double check to make sure that the track is accurate. And it's staying to the corner, it's staying to the corner. It's staying to the corner. And so that's going to be a good enough track for our evil purposes. Now we will want to apply that data to our tracking null, and if we hit U, we will see that that's there. We can just close up the tracking data information in our sky replacement layer. The next thing we want to do is we need to key out the white sky. And so the first thing we will search for is something called color range. And we will drag that onto that layer. We will take the dropper tool and we'll click in the middle. And let's go ahead and blink out the cloud layer behind it. And you'll see that we've got some more business to do back here. If you hit Command K, we can actually change this background color to anything we want that would help us determine how much key we need to use. Pink is pretty good, but black was showing a wider variety of ranges. And so then we'll take the eyedropper plus tool and we will click in spots to cover more of our background. And then we can click on the alpha tool and we'll see that we've got a pretty clean alpha channel. And we've got some chatter and some problems here with the edges of our trees, which is always a problem, but we'll minimize that soon. Next, so let's go ahead and blink on our sky layer, and let's go ahead and pick whip it to the tracking data. If you don't see this pick whip, if you right click up here in columns, you will see like switches, parent link modes. Those will need to be opened. And let's take a look at what happens with our sky. Alright. First thing that's obvious is that it needs to scale up a little bit. So we'll hit the letter S, or you can just twirl all these things down to reveal all the parameters. And we'll just scale up our sky. Let's take a look at that. For like tracking this cloud, we see that it's a pretty big change, and we probably want that change to be less aggressive. So we will make this cloud layer three-dimensional, and we will push back our clouds into the Z space. We need to scale up a little more to compensate for that. Let's see what happens if we push those clouds up a little higher. Okay. Take a look at that. So move-wise, that's a little more believable. We do have a little bit of a rotation here that I want to correct, and so the rotation happens right about here. So on Z rotation, we'll put a keyframe there, and then the pan will stop right about here. We'll put another keyframe, and we'll flatten it out a little bit. See how that looks. I'm going to select them both. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to keyframe assistant will ease. So that looks a little better. Make our alpha edges a little cleaner. And so we will go back to sky replacement, and the next thing that we will do is we will add something called key cleaner, and we will add that to the layer, and we'll reduce the chatter, and we'll increase the edge radius to 32. And if we look at the before and after, we see that we're making some advances. The next thing we want to do is apply a simple choke. And let's set that to 1. and that does a pretty good job of cleaning up as well. So let's take a look. The next thing I want to do is to kind of mask out some of this loose business here to make it look just a little cleaner. And so we will wait until it shows up, and I'm going to split that layer. And then we'll come down to where it lands. And if you hit the space bar, you can reposition, and Command plus, and we are going to, with this layer selected, we're going to select the mask tool, and we're going to create a mask that's kind of nestled in with there. Hit M, and that will reveal our mask properties. We want to make it a subtract mask. I want to feather that mask, let's say 20 pixels. And I want to animate the path so that we can track that. And actually, let's expand it a little bit so that it does a little more business. So now we'll go back to the beginning of the file. I'm going to hold down Shift, select the entire mask. We're going to drag it in that little nook. And now let's go halfway in. And we'll reposition it where we want it. Half the distance again. Reposition into that nook, halfway again, then we'll go back and let's see how that renders. Alright, so that looks good. Now the last thing that we're going to do is do a little color correction. Both of these shots were color corrected independently, but now we want to marry the two. So we will create another adjustment layer. We'll keep that at the top so it'll affect everything that's below it. CC for color correction. We will ask for the Lumetri and we'll drag it into that. And we will also need the Lumetri scopes, and we want RGB parade. Okay. There's our scope. So The black levels are good. Let's see what happens if we lift the whites up. And let's lower our shadows. Okay. And let's go to Creative Looks, and I want to pick SL Big, not the saturation, the intensity of the look. Let's lower that. Somewhere around there, and let's look at the before and after. Go ahead and render that. File, export, call it your name sky replacement 1. Tell it where you want it to go. And let's make it Apple ProRes Lite. Render that and post it on canvas.